going to begin by lightly sketching out some geometric forms based off of photo reference that I will share with you. So you can barely see any of my strokes, right? I sketched it out super light. Once you have it kind of mapped out, then you can start making more final decisions. So you just saw me use a compass to make my sphere, to make it perfectly round. I'm using a ruler to help give me some straight edges. And this is possible because of that very first sketch that I did so lightly. I made all the decisions there, and here I'm just finally making like the lines darker essentially. So that gives me a good sense of placement. And then erase any lines you don't need so that you're ready to begin shading things in. So I just added the shadows there. Okay, so here we go. Add value. So value means your lights and your darks. So I'm going to begin here with a pencil, and I'm just going to be shading it in based on that photo reference. I'm really looking at the photo clearly. I am noticing the lightest lights, the darkest darks. Where are they, and how do I push those values so it accurately represents the forms? Okay, so you're just going to see me shading here, trying to map out what I see in that photograph. This should take time. This should not be a quick process. I am fast forwarding here on the video just so you don't have to sit through the entire thing, but it takes a while. Okay, if you're using pencil, you saw I just put a little piece of paper under my hand. That's to avoid over smudging, where everything just starts to blend because your hand is resting on the paper. So you can do that if you are using pencil. That would be a good technique. Yeah, so you're just going to keep watching me shade all this in, really trying to replicate that photo. Once I feel everything is accurate, now I can go ahead and I can take my blending stump, and this is the technique we learned called smudging, and I'm going to smudge all of my pencil strokes so they soften up and they look a little more fuzzy. So the goal with smudging is to kind of literally hide your pencil marks. So that's why we use the blending stump. And remember, you could just use your finger or wrap a tissue around your finger, or you can use the blending stumps we have in class. At home, you could also just use a Q-tip. That is going to work well. When you smudge, you want to be careful not to overdo it. That tends to be what a lot of students do. And then everything ends up looking like the same color gray. You don't want that. You still want to be able to see the darkest darks, the lightest lights, and all the grays in between. So don't go overboard. Know when to stop, and really use your photo always to check. And if you need to, after you smudge, you can go back in with your pencil and kind of maybe darken some of the things that maybe got too light, and you can take your eraser to erase some things that got a little too dark and bring them back to light. So that's what I'm kind of doing here. I'm just reworking some of the details. Okay, the next technique, we are going to just use crayon. This one's pretty simple. You're just going to vary your pressure, so how hard you press down and how light you press down. I want you to choose one color if you're deciding to use crayon, and just work with it. And you guys can kind of just see how I'm using. You can already tell I'm seeing some light and shadow, and this is all pressure, but really, really take your time. Every single technique that I'm showing you takes me time. All right, the next one that I'm going to show you is colored pencil. So colored pencil is essentially the same thing as crayon, except you just are using a different tool. So there's two options with colored pencil. The one I'm doing here on the video, I'm just using the one color the entire time, just like I did with the crayon. If you wanted to kind of push yourself to be a little more advanced, you could layer some colors within the piece to show your light and shadow. So maybe I could add like a heavier blue into this piece for the darker spots, just to kind of play with how far can I push that blue color. So that is an option, or you can just do it exactly like I'm doing it here. Leave it one color and keep it simple. You know yourself best and what you're ready for as an artist. Okay, the next technique is hatching. This one I want you to use a marker. So you can choose a colored marker or just like a Sharpie that is black. That's fine with me. And the goal with hatching is to do like strokes over and over and over again in roughly the same direction. And then obviously the tighter the strokes are, the darker it appears. The more you spread out your strokes, the lighter it appears. So that's how you can show your value. Next up is oil pastel. So when I start with oil pastel, I kind of in my brain just think I'm using crayon, you know, and I kind of just operate it like it's a crayon to start. I start, you know, adding pressure on the darker spots, lighter on the lighter spots. But what I want you to explore if you were going to use oil pastel is I want you to push it further. Where this is fine, but I want you to start adding white and black. So you can see I started layering in some black into my core shadows and my cast shadows. And I'm not adding too much to start because it's hard to take it away. What I'm doing now is I'm using the red and going over the black to help blend it all together. I like to layer when I blend oil pastels. You can wrap a tissue around your finger and use your finger to blend. I don't like that technique, so I just layer the red and the black together and it kind of smooths out together, kind of smudges each other. And that's the way I like to operate oil pastels. So if you notice, I'm taking quite a while to do this. Now I'm moving on to the highlights. So I'm taking that white and I'm putting that into my red. And you want to leave a little bit of the paper exposed if you need a really bright highlight. And so it should almost look like a painting by the time that you're done. It's going to be very thick. It's a messier process. These are chunkier tools that you're going to use. But the effect is so vibrant and bright. So if you feel like you can master the oil pastel, that would be a great option. All right, and here's all the techniques that I went over in this video. You are going to choose what technique you want to show for your art assignment. Obviously, these are here for you if you ever want to practice on your own. But there you go. There's some ways to show value using a variety of media.